Well, the number one issue in the 5th District by far is healthcare. People are terrified they're going to lose it. They felt after our congressman voted to get rid of the Affordable Care Act and take healthcare away from 23 million people, that the bottom was really falling out from under them and their pre-existing conditions and Medicaid funding for schools and for nursing homes. But one piece of this is the opioid plague that we're suffering in this district. So I went to see some extraordinary people in Lynchburg at Roads to Recovery to talk about how you can really treat people with opioid problems. We have an addiction crisis in the 5th District of Virginia. We have an opioid crisis in the 5th District. But my question to you, my first question to you is, you spend your lives dealing with recovery. How does one approach recovery successfully? What do you do?
Well, my personal experience is I didn't approach recovery, it approached me. I tried to access recovery for 13 years in and out of programs and support groups. And it wasn't until it got bad enough. And for me, the bad enough was really bad. I had family problems, job problems, legal problems, and financial problems, which are common. They're the common denominators. Each one of those things causes someone enough emotional pain that eventually we either die or cave in internally and become open to help. We begin to have some sense of hope. And hope is the key ingredient. And there has to be a vehicle that will present hope or provide hope. And that's what we do here at Roads to Recovery.
It used to be that the traditional treatment model, the magic number for treatment and recovery was the 28-day treatment program. And finally, we've come to pay attention to the fact that that's not enough. And so programs like Roads to Recovery have started to proliferate around the country. And we're non-clinical. You heard the team members introduce themselves here. All of us are either in personal recovery or in family recovery ourselves. And so one of the things that we really emphasize is sticking with people. We have 40 beds in 5 houses, and our average length of stay is now about 8 months. We know that if we can hang on to people at least 3 months, that they'll begin to get a stronger foundation for their recovery and increase the probability that they can sustain over the long term.
You know, I live in a house with, 9 other guys, and we're all supportive of each other. We all go to meetings together. We talk about it around the house, and I didn't think that was possible. I didn't think I could live a normal life outside of constant kind of supervision.
We're not bad people trying to get good. We're sick people trying to get well. And that has been the perception for years, that we were a bunch of bad people. If you're in recovery, you were trying to become a good person versus a sick person trying to heal and get well.
There's a lot of talk in Washington about funds being available for this crisis. Even in the latest budget discussion, it's come up. Billions of dollars will be available for this. How should those billions be spent?
If I were a politician and I was collecting this data or talking to us, we're talking a lot about the problem and the solution. And we're doing that down here. But the side effects of recovering people re-entering the workforce and going back to work has economic value across the board. It reduces instances of lost productivity and damaged material in the workplace. The last figure I heard was something like $40 billion a year were being lost in the workplace because of this illness.
For every dollar invested in services like this, the return is anywhere between $8 and $12, depending on whether you're just considering employment, whether you add criminal justice system costs, healthcare costs, depending on what's being looked at. But it's a lot of money.
So how many more roads to recovery would you have to build?
That's a really good question. In Region 2000, which encompasses some of your district, there are between 14 and 15,000 people who have a diagnosable substance use disorder who could use some kind of intervention or service. And 200 to maybe 300 of those people get service in a given year. So the need is huge.
That's a really big.
Yeah, I mean, and that
Discrepancy.
actually mirrors national statistics. About 10% of the people who need help with a substance use disorder get it in any given year across the country.
Also, one of the biggest needs we have in this area right now is a viable short-term detox program. Our Community Service Board could no longer afford to operate theirs, so we have no detox
There's no detox.
unless you can afford to pay at the general hospital.
Wait, so we have a major crisis here. We have people dying.
Yes.
Mothers, fathers, we have children looked after by their grandparents, by the thousands, and they can't afford detox?
That's the biggest atom bomb I've seen in this field in Lynchburg in a long time.
But what will happen? I mean, if you just look at,
People will die. Maybe not huge numbers, but it's not good.
there's so much talk about this problem.
You just nailed it.
Talk.
And when it appears to me, and I'm not an accountant, when there is money in the pipeline, it doesn't seem to me that it reaches the ground. It gets absorbed in administrative stuff and bureaucratic stuff. I'm not convinced that the lion's share of it really hits the ground.
Okay, how do we change that? How do we make sure it hits the ground?
You do that.
Okay. I will do that.
That's your platform. You can make a difference if you want to.
That's it. That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And I do want to.